Hello, everybody. I think we're live. Um, Hopefully, we are live. If not, I have done something wrong and we're having problems today. So, just wait.
Are
Are we
live.
live?
If not, I have
Okay,
done.
we are live. I see that we're live. Hello, everybody. Welcome. So, today, you've joined us in another episode of our Youth2Talk podcast where we discuss different subjects and the intersection between these subjects and our Christian perspective, our Christianity. Now, today we're going to be talking about dating, and our guest for today will be Paul Yee from our youth. So, everybody, Paul, just introduce yourself.
Hey guys, it's Paul from Youth, from Hanvi Youth. Glad to be here.
Okay. So I'm not sure. I'm hopefully we are still streaming. I'm having a little bit of trouble seeing if we are. But in any case, so today we're going to be talking about dating. Now this is a topic that Paul has specifically chosen. So Paul, why don't we just talk a little bit about that? Why did you choose this subject?
The reason I chose this subject really was because I guess I've recently grown an interest to just having like some sort of intimate relationship with, I guess, those of an opposite sex, and yeah, I was just sort of infatuated by it, and the reason like I would like interested in the dating is because I personally want to expand my relationships beyond my family and friends, and I want to have an understanding of someone of an opposite sex and experience what it's like to have an intimate relationship with someone outside of my family and comfort zone.
Okay. Sounds good. So today we are going to talk about dating and other kinds of relationships. So first off, we have to when dating is a very prevalent thing within a lot of people's lives, especially when you're in high school, maybe even middle school, and then after you graduate high school, it's gonna still be like a prevalent thing. You're gonna see everybody, this person dating that person, this person dating that person, and it's always gonna kind of be in the back of your head. Oh, well, these kind of your desire to date, or having friends that are dating, or just all of this. I mean, we have a very prevalent dating culture within our society today. So today, what I want to do is first, I want to define what we mean by dating. Now, dating, when you look at it, it should be like a branch from a wider understanding of relationship. So dating is a kind of relationship. Now, relationship, what you need to understand about a relationship is relationship, whether it's between people or different concepts, is just two or more things that are connected. So if one person has a relationship with another person, that means that one person and this other person are connected together somehow, and that can either mean familially, that means either you and your brother or sister or your parents, that can be friend wise. There's lots of different ways for someone or something to have a relationship with another thing. Now, today we're going to talk specifically about one kind of relationship, which is dating. Now, Paul, I wanted to ask you first before we started to move on. What do you define as dating? What is dating to you?
Well, to be honest, I when I was tasked to answer this question, I really didn't know how to really answer it because it's very similar to a relationship with a friend or family. But you see, I think it's a little different from those because having an intimate relationship with someone can be very, I guess, different from whereas you're in your comfort zone when you're friends or family. You see, what I think about dating is that having dating is what I think having a intimate relationship with someone to where you can be personal and private to someone and show your have an mutual relationship with each other to where you can um, easily and accessibly share your feelings and thoughts about each other and about yourselves. So or something.
Sounds good. Yeah.
Okay.
So I went through and I just got different definitions from different dictionaries and stuff like that, and to see how other people would define a dating relationship. And kind of putting together all these different definitions, the kind of singular definition I found that came up most often is the fact that dating is the connection of two people with some form of romantic commitment and intimacy. This is kind of the general average definition that I continued to find as I was researching what dating was. Now, dating. Let's think of dating as this kind of definition. The fact that it's two people, the connection of two people with some form of romantic commitment and intimacy. Now, these are talking about different aspects of dating. Now, we've talked. So I've shared what I found when I looked towards the definition of what dating was. We'll go into a little bit about the different aspects of dating, especially the aspects of dating that come up within this inherent definition. So first is okay. The phone is ringing, but I will continue on. So first is the fact that with dating, there is some sort of commitment that we need to have. I will get that. Just wait. I forgot about that. Okay, I'm sorry. In any case, so it involves a little bit of commitment. Now, there are various degrees of commitment, most definitely, when you're dating someone. I don't. For those of you who have dated, for those of you who haven't, this is just the innate essence of dating. There are different levels of commitment. Now, there is the kind of commitment you can commit to that it's kind of like are you dating are you dating like in an open relationship where you're dating someone but it's not exclusive, and the other side is, are you exclusively dating this one person and this one person alone? This is a kind of commitment. Another kind of commitment is whether this is dating casually, where you're just dating to have fun, and the opposite side of that, where it's you're dating more seriously in the hopes and like just perception of marriage. And then also a third one that's I guess a little bit of a indicator of the level of commitment is also the length of your date relationship. The fact that the longer you've been dating together, it has a little bit of an indicator. I'm not saying the longer you date, the more committed you are. Sometimes that's not true, but it is generally an indication of how committed you are to the relationship, somewhat. Now, Paul, I wanted to ask you, what do you think is a good kind of dating, good aspect of commitment in terms of dating? Like, what do you personally, or what do you think personally, that about how much someone should commit within a dating relationship?
So what I think about how much I should commit in a dating relationship, um, so as a 17-year-old guy, I think for me and many others who are in my position, I feel like at this sort of early of an age that we shouldn't really necessarily commit to another person too much because I feel like realistically, if I were to commit myself to another person, I wouldn't I wouldn't want to end up marrying that person. So I feel like at this sort of age, it kind of limits the level of intimacy you should have for another person. Whereas where you grow older and like have more financial stability, more you know, uh I guess expression of yourself and know who you are better, I feel then that you should then find someone you should have an intimate relationship with and try having a commitment to him or her. But as for now, for me, I feel like those at an early age, such as like, in the teens, maybe early 20s or so. They should just try, maybe just like you said about like maybe casual dating and like see if just test the waters and see if like um what your preferences or things and such.
Okay, so you think that commitment is you like you're that you, based on how old you are or how mature you are, your commitment to dating does change. You can the younger you are, the less committed you should be. The older you are, the more committed you should be. That kind of thing.
Yes, I think along the lines of that.
Okay,
Right.
okay. So now, besides commitment, there's also another thing that is intimacy. Now, in dating relationships, there is bound to be some form of intimacy. Now, intimacy does come in various ways. So the most, I guess, standard understanding of intimacy, I think, comes in four different ways. It's first emotional intimacy, physical intimacy, intellectual intimacy, and then spiritual intimacy. These four, I'm not saying that that's like the end all be all in terms of aspects of intimacy, but I think those are kind of like the four main aspects of intimacy that we find in relationships. So, with that, I'll ask you another question. This is all your personal kind of opinion per se. So, in terms of intimacy within a dating relationship, how do you think the level of intimacy should be? What is the standard of the level of intimacy that we should have in dating relationships?
Well, so when I was asked this question, I originally thought about this first idea of how you need to have a certain level of discretion and boundaries for those who you may have an intimate relationship with. And I know some people may not have known about this information about me, but recently I have started dating someone, but relationship sort of ended, and I feel like one of the main reasons, components to why um, our relationship sort of ended was the level of discretion and boundaries we had. There's this I realized that after dating this person that you and your significant and the person trying to be intimate with must have a level of respect and honor for each other, so that the relationship may stay healthy and mutual, and that too extreme of intimacy may scare or like be a little intimidating for the person you may be seeing. So I feel as if for a level of intimacy that you should just know the boundaries to how intimate you want to be with that person or not, and just yeah, something like that.
So, is intimacy then the standard of intimacy based on personal preference, I guess? A little bit of what
Uh,
you think is would be best in the
right.
relationship?
I feel like the level of intimacy varies upon who you're dating and like who what type of person he or she is like. Um, and that I feel like that is where I feel like experience will be very handy as well, so that you may understand, realize if the person you're dating is likes a really close relationship, like likes really clingy people, or doesn't like clean. Yeah. So yeah, that's where I feel as if experience may help in the level of intimacy you should have for another person.
Sounds good. In any case, I just wanted to talk about a little bit. I just wanted to know a little bit about what you think about this kind of dating and the different aspects of dating. Now, the biggest thing is this. Now, we talked a little bit about dating, what the definition is, what different aspects of dating are. Now, I'm going to talk about a very the main portion of the aspect of dating, the singular understanding of what dating is and why it's important, or why it should or should not be something we do. And it's this. People have, I mean, there are different aspects of dating, but people will always have a reason for dating. You see, and this is going to be the one singular thing that will control all these other aspects of dating, because this is what their dating will be going towards, their purpose, their reason for dating. And now, there are various different reasons for dating. I have a not a long list of all the reasons that people have for dating, but I have a short list of some, I guess, very standard, very frequent reasons that people do date. But Paul, I mean, you talked about your reason that you dated and broke up recently. So what was your reason for dating, just before we list off the different reasons for dating?
So I feel like one of the main reasons to why I wanted to date is because I wanted to expand my relationships beyond my friends and family and what the kind of relationships I had. So like I wanted to have an understanding of someone's of the opposite sex and experience what it's like to have an intimate relationship with someone like outside of my family and my comfort zone and like something like that. And like um so I guess I'm at that time of age where I start growing, I guess, of feelings for some people and things like that. And I feel as if many people will undergo the same stage as well, where, you know, you start having, um, I guess, uh, feelings for each other. And
Curiosities.
yeah, curiosities, right? And so, yeah, and ultimately, so when we grow older, we all have like the end goal of like wanting to marry someone and things like that. And an important step to like finding someone you want to marry is trying to find out who you are and what your preferences and things like that. And do that, you can do that. You can sort of figure out who you like and what type of persons you like and things like that by dating. And I feel like you know, as you start to date and whether see whether you like someone or not and things like that, it'll greatly help you to find your significant other or something like that.
Okay, so and that is one reason that people do decide to date. The fact that date the word would be experience, right? Dating for the
Right.
experience, because you want to figure out your preferences or how to deal with people or type of thing. Just dating for experience. That is one reason, and it's a fairly common reason that some people do date. Another one, I think a big one, not only with dating but marriage as well, would be love. People would say the fact that, oh, but I love them, therefore I will date them or I will marry them. And love is a very kind of, people say they love someone or something else, but I don't think they understand what love means. They put love in a way that it's sort of like, there's like, oh, love knows no bound, oh, love overcomes all things kind of thing, but then they base their love on kind of feelings rather than an actual action. The fact that love can, you can feel love and then you can sometimes not feel love, and then the fact that, oh, if you don't feel love anymore, then you shouldn't date anymore kind of thing. People place love as kind of the reason they want to date, but then their understanding of love is very experiential. If they have to like feel it and sense it, like sensual basically. They have to sense love, and then they can date. But then once they don't sense love, they don't have to date kind of thing. It's a very feelings oriented type of thing. When they talk about they love somebody and therefore they'll date them or marry them, it's a very feelings oriented thing, and it gets very muddy and confusing because feelings are not a very straight science. It's very changing and very mucky.
Right.
It's very cloudy. You don't sometimes
Right.
you just can't understand your feelings that much. Sometimes you don't know why you feel a certain way. That's just the way feelings are. That's just the way emotions sometimes are, and you can't base a relationship off of that alone. That it just won't work. But this is besides experience, this understanding of this sensual love, this is another reason that people do decide, I want to date this person. And another reason that I have is attraction. Since I'm attracted to this person, I will date them. This is another kind of, I guess, it relates to this sensual type of love, because it's also, oh, this person is attractive to me, I need to date them. That's sometimes that's your entire motive and reason. It's like, oh, I'm attracted to this person, why shouldn't I date them, or I should date them. Attraction is not the best basis for dating either, but people do use it, and it is one of the reasons that people do date people by. Now, if you solely date somebody because you're attracted to them, it's not the best basis to start dating. But anyways, I'm not going to talk about the rights and wrongs of dating right now. I'm just stating reasons people do date. Other things can be peer pressure. The fact that other friends, other people around me are dating and I'm not, and the peer pressure and the kind of desire to be on that bandwagon is great for certain people. That becomes a reason that they want to date. I know that it's great for some people. It's actually one of the reasons why I wanted to date in high school. I didn't, but I wanted to, because everybody else, all my friends were dating, and the fact that when they're dating, they spend time with that person and that person alone, and you're just like left a little bit alone. So like, oh, maybe I should start dating kind of thing. It's that weird peer pressure thing, and trying to stifle your loneliness by having someone else. Which also gets into my next and last kind of reason for dating. It's happiness. Your own self gratification. The fact that, and in this understanding that we date because we want to be happy, there are different things and aspects associated with this. We want to be affirmed by other people. We want to have acceptance and affirmation by people. We want like security. We want somebody to lean on and somebody to be there for us. That's why some people start dating. Another thing is social status. Oh, the fact that, oh, I'm single. Oh, I'm dating. That kind of social status, and the fact that singles are just, it's much more of a, I guess, social status to be dating rather than to be single, kind of. I feel like when I was in high school, it's like that. It's like, oh, you're single, and it's like, oh, I have a girlfriend type of thing. And for some reason, having a girlfriend or boyfriend makes you like a little bit more of a better person, your life a little bit better than being single type of thing. That was something that's there and is there. And then another thing is physical happiness. We want to gratify the flesh. We want our sexual desires to be met. And I'm not talking sexual desires as in, you just want to have sex with a person, but the fact that like, oh, you want to have this kind of like physical closeness, the fact that you have a girlfriend that you can hug or hold hands with or something like that, the fact that we have some physical needs that if we have another person that we can gratify that somehow. These are different reasons that people use to date someone. They're like, oh yeah, because of this I will date someone, this person or that person, and these are different reasons to date. I'm not saying that they're all wrong, but they're definitely, I feel like, shouldn't be the core reason for dating. You see, we're going to talk, there's a lot of other reasons to date. You can think of any other reason and it can be a reason to date. Oh, I'm bored, I want to date someone. Or, oh, I'm lonely, I want to date someone. It can be such a variety of different reasons, but there is only actually one reason that you ought to date as a Christian specifically. Now, we're going to get into we need to understand dating and how the Bible talks about dating. We have to understand what the Bible talks about. We have to understand how the Bible talks about relationships. Because if you look up dating in the Bible, you will get nothing. The Bible doesn't talk about dating. It doesn't say you should date this person or you shouldn't date this person or dating is good or dating is bad. No, there's nothing like that in the Bible. But there are truths to what God says about how we should proceed and purpose relationships that we have in our lives to be. And with these truths, we can then apply that to dating, the subject of dating. Now, what the Bible talks about relationships, specifically relationships with other people. Now, the Bible talks about lots of different relationships with your husband or wife, relationships with your brother or sister, relationships with your parents, relationships with your neighbors. It talks about lots of different relationships. But when overall it's looked at in the full scope of it, relationships become two things, I think. Now, this is my thinking, my understanding. I may be wrong, I may be right. You need to research yourself to figure it out. But what I think is that in Scripture, in the Bible, when the Bible talks about relationships, it's the relationship we need to, it's purposed in two ways. First way is the relationships you have become an opportunity to portray the love of Christ. This is the first way. Okay? Because every place, it's like, love your neighbor as yourself, love your enemies, respect your parents. It's an opportunity to portray the love of Christ. It also in the Bible, it also talks about how when people are brought up to heaven and God says, okay, when I was hungry, you fed me. When I was naked, you clothed me. And these people are saying, but I didn't do that for you. I never saw you naked and clothed you, or hungry and fed you. And God says, what you did to the least of the people you met in your life, you did for me. You see, every opportunity, every relationship, every connection we have to another human being becomes an opportunity by which we can portray the love of Christ. And secondly to that, it's also then an opportunity for us to grow in Christ. So these are the two things that I saw. Because first, we can portray the love of Christ in every relationship that we have. We can do it to glorify God, basically, by portraying that love. And that instance, that relationship itself, becomes an opportunity for us to grow in Christ. Because let me tell you, portraying the love of Christ in a relationship is not easy. It's a struggle. It's going to be hard. And that's why it's an opportunity for us to also then grow, because when we go through these struggles to try to love somebody, we can grow into the love of Christ as well. So not only are we portraying love, but we're also receiving and understanding more of Christ's love as well. So this is what Scripture talks about a little bit in terms of a relationship. Now, we're going to apply this understanding to the concept, to the subject of dating. Now, the idea of dating is not very, it's pretty new. It's not like olden times, like this kind of popular dating culture was there. It wasn't. It's a very modern age kind of thing. Now, when we talk about dating and stuff like that, we have to think about dating in as Christians, we have to understand that dating is not separate from our Christianity. Now, many people decide, oh, I'm a Christian, and then they leave their dating life outside of Christianity. The fact that I am a Christian here, but then my dating life, it's outside of my Christianity. It's not. If you're a Christian, then your Christianity should envelop all aspects of your life, including dating. So we have to understand then, okay, how do we navigate through this understanding of dating? Whether we should do it, should not do it, or how we should do it. How do we do that? And we're going to talk about this a little more at length. I'm going to ask you a few questions, Paul. So I'm not ask you a few questions, but we're going to talk about some misconceptions that people have. Right. The first and the biggest kind of misconception that I think people have about dating and about marriage and just about girl-guy relationship type stuff is the fact that there is this the idea of like soulmates, or the fact that there's just this one person for you and you have to find this right person so that you can date them and marry them. The fact is, that's not true. That's not true. There, nowhere in the Bible does it say you have a soulmate, or that, you know, you're supposed to look for this Mr. or Mrs. Right. There is nothing of that kind. And this is much more the understanding. This is why I feel we have this dating for experience, dating to find your preferences, and dating to find this right person. It's not about finding the right person. Dating is not about finding the right person. I mean, not even dating. Marriage is not about finding the right person. Because, you see, when you have two people in a relationship and they're trying to find Mr. Right and they're trying to go after their own happiness, what happens is it's like two halves of a person trying to pull at each other to complete themselves. You see? You can't, if one half is trying to complete themselves by pulling the other half, you can't have a complete thing. You're just trying to pull your own benefit, your own desire, your own happiness out of this other person. And you're trying to look for that one right person. And then when you're trying to look for this one right person, you're trying to see, oh yeah, I prefer this, I don't prefer this, you know, this, I want her to be this or this attractive, I want her to be this or this smart, I want her to be like this or like that. Oh, we're talking about preferences, and why we talk about these preferences is because we think we can achieve happiness through this person. The fact that through dating, my desire is happiness. This is the core idea behind trying to find the right person. The fact that if I find the right person with the right preferences that I have, then I will be happy, type of thing. What do you think about this this idea of finding the right person? I know you talked about your significant other and stuff like that. A lot of people have this understanding, this thought process, the fact that your preferences have to line up with this one person, and this is how this is what you do with dating. You experience things to try to figure out your preferences, and then to find the right one that fits your preferences.
Yeah. So one of the things I realized while you're talking about this sort of like relationship that God this sort of thing that God has is like, so I kind of realized that, like, you know, like this sort of infatuation of love and things we have is sort of like beyond our own comprehension. You see, like, I feel like dating and all the things we do in like this worldly society is has no comprehension of what God true like the love God shows, and you know, the happiness we try to desire through dating is something that like is beyond our comprehension. Like this, I'm a bit confused myself, and I'm a bit lost of thought right now. But what I feel like I'm trying to say is like like
I mean, it's okay. Well, let's discuss it a little bit more while you think about it. So this is prevalent within Christianity as well. People are like, oh, hey, you have to pray for your specific preferences and God will meet them, kind of thing. I don't know. This seems weird to me because even when I was in high school, people would tell other people, or people would tell me, oh, hey, you need to pray about your future spouse right now. And what you have to do is you have to figure out your preferences and then pray to God that, oh, God, please fill all these preferences in the person that I meet. Now, I'm not saying that God won't do that. I'm not saying that God doesn't do that. But the idea itself that we're talking about our own preferences and then trying to say, oh, God, please fill these in my future. It's very geared towards our own happiness for sure. It's not like, oh, God, I want to glorify you, so please make my wife attractive and make my wife, this and that, have lots of money, be this or this tall. And like, it's how can you justify that? Oh, I'm trying to glorify God by asking him to fill my preferences in my future spouse. It's just, you can't. That makes no sense. But the fact is, people do that all the time, and Christians think it's all right to do that. They're like, oh, hey, it's okay. You need to find the best person that you can for yourself. If you want an attractive person, you have to pray for an attractive person, kind of thing. That, I feel like the shallowness of society has sunken into Christian understanding so much so that this understanding that your fulfillment in your spouse is based on the fulfillment of your personal preferences is so weird to me. That's so unbiblical to me, I feel like. And it comes from the understanding of, I need to find happiness in my own kind of significant other, whoever I'm dating, whoever I'm getting married to, that kind of thing. It's definitely not. Your happiness, you see, in a book that I read during my college years, it's a book about marriage, basically. But it was a book that argued this. Its thesis was this: what if God designed marriage to make us holy rather than to make us happy? And the book, in its entirety, talks about this: what the purpose of marriage is. And you see, there's two different aspects of marriage. There's people that think that marriage is something that people created, society created. And there are people who think that marriage is something God created. Now, as a Christian, we understand marriage to be something that God has created in the beginning when he created Adam and Eve and said, okay, you two, now you are one. And this is how he created the institution of marriage. It is a divine institution. And so if God has created it and not man, who do you think who gives the marriage purpose? It's not man, it's God. And God didn't design marriage just solely in its core to make us happy. Though it is an aspect of marriage. I am happy in my marriage. Sometimes I'm not. Sometimes I am. But see, happiness is not the core. You see, so that's why when I'm unhappy, I don't say, oh, hey, this marriage is off now. I want a divorce. Because that's not the core idea and core essence and core purpose of marriage. But that is what happens today. When they're unhappy in marriage, they decide, okay, time to get a divorce. This is what people think. But you see, marriage is not intended, it's not designed by God in its core to make us happy. It's rather to make us holy. And I'll expound on this later, but do you understand what that means? What do you think?
Right. What you kind of said is just a slur of like whatever you just said was like really like just eye opening, and like what I was like trying to understand the concept of is like, so whenever you said like let's expound upon like the misconceptions about like dating, I thought of a misconception of how like unfulfilling really it is to like have a partner to like date with. Like you see, like having someone to date with won't be as fulfilling as like people think like it is. Like you think that all your like loneliness and like will be lost, and like all your happiness will be fulfilled by having some sort of partner to have, and like some sort of like dating person. And the truth is really that that fulfillingness can be like that sort of sense of fulfillment of having this person isn't always like isn't as like impactful as the fulfillment of like having the relationship with God. Like I feel as if like if you're more attuned to like the if you're more like in tune of like growing your relationship with God rather than like growing your relationships with like your dating persons and things like that, you will be able to find your significant other more I'm better and like have like a better purpose to why you should have someone to
Yeah,
marry.
I think I understand. And your
Yeah.
understanding, you
I,
said a better purpose. That's absolutely right. Because the understanding
okay.
that you need to find the right person, that purpose is designed for your own happiness. You
Right.
understand? Oh, and because of that, this becomes something that isn't true. Like, if you're now, another thing, another misconception that we have of dating, a lot of people have this kind of misunderstanding, is that the more committed you are in a relationship and the more intimacy there is, the better your dating life is. That's not the case. Like, at all, that is not the case. The more committed you are and the more intimate you are doesn't make your dating life better. Just because you have sex with your boyfriend or girlfriend does not make your dating life better. Just because you guys are very committed does not make your dating life better. Even besides that, what actually God says is God demands and commands that we have a certain amount of separation in our relationships. Not more connection. More and more connection does not equal better. Actually, more boundaries, more limits, more separation is what God asks of relationships, especially relationships that aren't marriage yet. You see? Because I'm sorry. Because how God designed marriage was this. It is designed for one person and another person to be joined as one and to become one and to go throughout the rest of life trying to be one and glorify God in their relationship. Now, if you're not married, God does not want you to become more committed and become more intimate with one another. That's actually the opposite of what God says. God says, okay, in marriage, I want you to be more intimate and more committed. Outside of marriage, you need certain boundaries so that you can glorify me while still being in this relationship that isn't marriage. People think being more intimate, being more committed equals a better dating relationship. It doesn't. And especially to Christians, it should not. There should be boundaries that we create so that we do not disrespect and kind of, let's see, yeah, I think that's the best word. Disrespect God and the institution that He's created, these relationships that He's allowed us to make with each other. So, with that, I'm not sure if this is a big problem for many Christians. I feel like most Christians understand the need for boundaries, but I feel like, especially within society, many people think that just because more commitment in a relationship, more intimacy in a relationship will equal a better dating relationship.
Mhm.
What do you think?
Yeah, I definitely agree with you on that part. You know, um, I guess yeah, I feel like many guys of our age, my age, have this sort of misunderstanding, whereas like you like try to connect to another girl like that, you will find it at like as fulfilling or some sort of thing, and you will find some sort of like happiness by doing so. And the thing is with that, the problem with that is like, um it has nothing to do with like, I guess, mm, whereas guys like to like focus more towards on like, I guess, showing their like expressing their feelings towards the like girls and like other people. I feel as if they had the same expression towards God and like had the same passion, then they would find that more fulfilling. For my personal experience, I feel like if I spend more attention on just like reading the Bible and like gaining a better understanding of what God's love truly is, I feel like I will use that. I'll be able to use that and understand how God's love works and how I can utilize that for other relationships, not necessarily for, not only for like intimate relationships with like future maybe girls, but like also like just like around my family with friends and all sorts of other things, and you know something like that. Yeah.
Yeah.
I,
And also, people who are watching, if you guys have any questions, I mean, you feel free to write those questions down in the comments, and then we can try to talk about it. We may try to talk about it to see where it goes. But yeah, there are many different kinds of misconceptions that people have about dating, but that's just because they don't understand the kind of concept of dating. It's just this default understanding that we have. Oh, people are dating. I should also date at a certain point in time and get close to uh, other girls or other guys, and then I will have experience, or I will have a better life, a happier time in my life, kind of thing. But that's just not the case. Now, you see, another big misconception, we're going to continue on with misconceptions. It's the fact that it's a very Christian misconception, this one. It's the fact that sexuality is a sin. Now, I don't know if we have any younger viewers, but if your parents haven't talked to you about sex, oh, well, through this thing, maybe it'll give you leeway into talking about that. But the fact is, God created us with a desire for sex. He did. And sexuality itself is not a sin. Sex itself is not a sin. What is a sin is if we meet these God-given desires, this sexual desire that God has given us, if we try to satisfy this desire outside of God's intended design. You see, when God created and designed marriage, he designed sex to be within the realm of marriage, within this divine institution of marriage. But you see, but we as sexual beings that have a desire for this sexual, let's say, appeasement, what happens is sometimes we decide, oh, hey, I'm not going to meet these desires in the God-given way. I'm going to meet these outside of that. I'm going to meet these desires however I want. And what happens then is when it becomes a sin. See, we are not only, we desire sex. That's just the case for all people. Sex is something that God has innately built within us. But the fact is, when that is used outside of God's intended design, when people who are dating start to have sex and start to, have just use and meet all their sexual desire within their dating relationship, that's when it becomes a sin. And that's also when people, especially people who haven't had sex and people who are virgins, they're curious. They don't understand what sex is, how sex feels, what sex means. And so that's how I think a lot of people start out into having sex within their dating relationship. They don't understand sex. They've never had sex, and therefore they decide also this reason of experience type of thing. It's an experience that'll help me grow type of thing. They decide, oh, hey, maybe I will try sex. And that's when it goes all down, because that's not the right reason. Dating or having sex for the experience, dating or having sex for the happiness is not going to do anything. It's not going to work. It's not going to bring fulfillment. It's not. You see? Yeah, go.
Okay, so yeah, I just wanted to add on to this how like whatever you're saying, it is in the Bible, because I've done research along this sort of thing, and in the Bible of First Thessalonians chapter 4 verse 1 through 8, it talks about how we should abstain from sexual immorality and try not to defraud one another in each other's relationships. And it really emphasizes how we should preserve the goodness of sex in the light of its divine intention. And it's exactly what you said, how like you know we our sexual immoralities sometimes get the better of us, but the Bible warns us about this and how we should use sex for its divine intention, things like that. That's just what I wanted to add.
Yeah, and society does not work like that. Society,
Right.
especially today, the popular understanding is that, oh, you need to experience it. You need to find your preferences for sex, and you need to, figure out, your chemistry. If your chemistry works by having sex and seeing if that chemistry is okay and kind of thing. It's a very the reasons are not good, but Christians don't some Christians don't think about this. They don't think about the reasons, and they just say, "Oh, other people are saying this, so why not? They must be right because other people are saying it, so they try it as well." It's not a good thing to do. It's not the right thing to do. It's not even something that'll bring fulfillment in your life. And with that, there's also another misconception, Christian misconception. It's the fact that dating is bad and courtship is good. This type of understanding that dating is bad and courtship is good. If you don't understand what dating and courtship is, dating is just when we see it, it's the general thing that most people do. They just it's the popular understanding of dating. People go on dates together. They do stuff together alone at times as well and stuff like that. And what we consider courtship is the fact that you try to date in a group, or you try to maintain strict boundaries into how you can date someone and stuff like that. I feel like though having boundaries and stuff like that is good, it's not the fact that dating is bad and courtship is good. It's the fact that we don't understand that we have to glorify God in our relationships, especially in our relationships we have of those to the opposite sex, of which we have commitment and intimacy towards. You see, people don't understand the purpose of dating. The purpose of dating as Christians, and as for all things that we as Christians should do, is to glorify God. Nothing else. And if as Christians we're to glorify God and glorify God in all things, including in dating, then why are we striving after our own personal happiness, our own, we want to, feel happy about our dating life. We want to feel fulfilled. We want to, have this person fill this kind of hole and gap and loneliness and boredom in our lives. It's not about what we can gain out of dating. It's how we can glorify God in dating, in all of our relationships, basically. And that's the thing that we need to focus on, not the understanding that boundaries are good kind of thing. We have to understand the purpose of dating and the purpose of all relationships in general, basically. What do you think, Paul?
Yeah. So with all this being said, I think I have a question that maybe it might close up things up, but just how, with all this being said, how should we as young Christians now approach dating, and how should we approach trying to find our significant others now?
Okay, that's a good transition into our kind of
Right.
understanding of how we should understand dating. And this is not this comprehensive I'm right kind of thing. It's just my opinion on this that I've built up through my understanding of scripture and my research. But for dating, I mean, I wouldn't recommend people to date, especially not you guys, especially not any of the youth. Not because you're too young or anything like that. I'm not saying age is a factor in when you should date or not. I know most of you. Most of you I know fairly well. I know some of you are fairly mature as well. Besides that point, none of you are mature enough to understand that in a relationship, especially when you're in a dating relationship, that you're going to be glorifying God in it. Some of you I know very close. I know you are very mature, but even then, I still know that you are not ready for a relationship in which you will glorify God in it. You're not. So I wouldn't recommend dating to anybody, but if somebody was dating, I would say that there are more dangers than benefits. There are definitely benefits to dating. Experience is also a thing you can get when you date. It shouldn't be the core purpose for dating, but it is an aspect of dating that you will inevitably, when you date, get experience. But the fact is, there are many dangers. And what I mean by that is, when you date somebody, there is much more risk of you not glorifying God in your relationship than when you're not dating. When you're not dating, there's no danger of not glorifying God in dating because you're not dating. But when you are dating, what happens is it's hard to set boundaries for most people. You see? Because desire for physical intimacy can get great, especially for guys, for sure. And that's almost, I would say for most guys, that is like kind of like 80-90% of what guys purpose their dating lives to be. This satisfaction of physical desire. That is a big reason for guys to date. And if it wasn't a reason when they started dating, it becomes a reason as they date. So there is a lot of danger in dating in general. And the fact that when you're not ready to date, but you just date because, it's even more dangerous. It's already dangerous, but if you're not ready, it's all the more dangerous. Just like the fact that we don't let 13-year-old kids drive cars. I'm sure that they can drive cars. People can train 13-year-olds. They can learn to drive cars, but it's just not safe. It's not safe. You see? And just like that, because they're not, I guess, old enough, mature enough, and just like that, relationships as well, dating relationships as well, if you're not mature enough, if you're not ready, it's just going to be all the more dangerous with very little benefit. And also, as Christians, we have to understand that choosing a person not only to date but to marry as well, it's not about preference, it's about priority. You see, because I talked about Christians praying about their different preferences to be met and stuff like that, but it's not about preference, it's about priority. What is your priority in dating? And if it's not to glorify God, then there shouldn't be. Yeah, I don't understand why people.
So, I guess I have a follow-up question after that. So, as we all know, Pastor Jude, you are married and you have a wife and a kid. And I just have a question about how did you know that you were able to find this person and you knew that you were able to have this sort of intimate relationship and at the same time glorify God?
So, what I think about marriage is this. I told you, and I'll tell you again, there's no such thing as soulmates or the thing that you are meant to be with one another. You're destined for one other person. I don't believe that's true. You just choose. And I chose. I didn't choose like eeny, meeny, miny, mo chose. I knew my wife for a little bit. I've seen her and been with her and talked to her and went to church together. So I knew her to a certain extent. But then I also, chose. Okay, what is the purpose of my dating I dated my wife very short, and then we got married right after. So I didn't have a long kind of dating relationship, but I feel like if I did have a long dating relationship, me and my wife would probably have broken up, probably, because it's, you see, because I didn't understand what relationship and dating was either, kind of. All of my kind of understanding about dating and marriage, some of them was during that time was as well, but it's a lot of retrospective understanding of what dating and relationships are like, being in a marriage relationship continually. You see, when you are dating, you're dating with a specific purpose: to glorify God, to love this person as God loves you. This is your purpose in dating and marriage. And I would actually not say in dating, just in marriage, but in all relationships for sure as well. But it's this: it's a choice, it's an action that you have to take. You decide to marry this person, you decide to then love them despite maybe it being hard, you not being happy all the time, you know, them maybe not even reciprocating what you have done. It's not about what they do. It's not, oh, they love me, I love them. No, it's about you love them because Christ loved you, and that love continues to flow, and Christ's love continues to flow from him to you and you to them. That's what continues to happen, and this is what relationships should look like, especially marriage relationship. If it's a reciprocal thing where you wait for them to love you and you love them, or you love them and if they don't love you, you don't love them back kind of thing, it's not that. See, you decide to be with this person. It's your choice, your decision. Nobody else makes it for you. God does not force you to do it. It's you. And then from that point, then you decide now to love them despite any circumstance or condition, whatever they may do or say to you. That doesn't matter. Since you've decided to marry this person, you love them no matter what. Because that's exactly the love that Christ showed us. Christ loved us even though we were sinners, even though we nailed him to the cross, even though we betrayed him, whipped him, spat at him, he died for us and he loved us. You see, and that love is what we should seek and strive to portray, not only in our relationships with each other, my relationship with you, your relationship with your brother or your parents, but our relationships overall. And that is a truth that is applied in dating and in marriage. We need to love each other as Christ loved us. And see, that should be our core purpose, our core understanding of relationships, which is applied into dating. We need to love everyone, or you need to love your significant other that you're dating as Christ loved you. And you see, if you're trying to love someone as Christ loved you, you're not trying to get your own happiness from this person, from this relationship. You're not trying to distinguish preferences and, oh, I like this about this type of person, but not this about this type of person. It's about, regardless of that fact, portraying Christ's love. This is the core idea of Christianity, what we ought to do as Christians, and this is what should be applied in our dating life, in our marriage, and all of our relationships. So with that, I will also say that when you're dating someone, especially when young people are dating, there is a, let's say, so there are people, it's basically this kind of thing. People think, oh, you need to be a good guy or a bad guy, you know? Kind of like, oh, good guy, there's good guys that you should date and there's bad guys you should date, you know? Girls like bad guys and like girls like good guys kind of thing. Good guys are like all nice and everything to their girl. Bad guys are like, you know, off-puttish and like, you know, they're like nonchalant, and then like, oh, girls like that about them as well. It's, you see, Loving as Christ loved you is not this good guy routine. It's not this good guy routine as well. Because this good guy routine is also it's a weird way into trying to get your own happiness as well. If I am good to this girl, they will eventually reciprocate something, and you're being good in hopes of this reciprocation in order to satisfy your own happiness. See, that's not the case that we should. It's not the thing that we should work under. How you show Christ's love is not to just go up to this girl and treat her like God. It's not. How you show Christ's love to this girl is to treat her like a daughter of Christ, a daughter of God, children of God, and to share with her through your words, through your actions, through how you live and treat her like she is the daughter of Christ. She is a child of God. She is someone that Christ loves and Christ loves dearly. And all your actions towards this girl or this person shouldn't be for your own self-glorification. It should be for God's glorification. So with everything you do, if this person then looks at you with starry eyes, twinkly bright, then you're doing something wrong. Because if you are truly portraying the love of Christ, what should happen is she should not be looking at you with twinkly bright eyes. She should be looking at God and Christ with twinkly bright eyes. Your love and your portrayal of Christ, if that leads to your glorification and not God's glorification, you are doing it wrong. You see, and that's why when I'm talking about how you should date someone and you should love them like Christ loves you, I'm not talking about good guy routine. I'm talking about Christ's love, just showing that, portraying that. And people need to understand this. I think people kind of don't get this at sometimes. They think, oh yeah, we need to, kind of like God tier this girl or this guy that I'm dating. No, that's not what I'm saying. Do you understand that? Do you get that, Paul?
Yeah.
So yeah, viewers, you can send in your questions. I do want to answer a few questions that you guys may or may not have, because I feel like you guys may have interesting questions. But if not, we'll go towards some of the questions that we have today, that we've brought up today.
Okay.
So you did ask about, so one of your questions, Paul, was the fact that how do you know if you've met your significant other? And
right.
As I've said before, I don't believe in soulmates. I don't believe we're destined for one person. I think that we choose, and God either is okay with our choice or not okay based on our reasons why we chose this person, and then how we then act afterwards.
Right.
You see?
Yeah.
But with that, a lot of people, when they're looking for their significant other, their standard becomes their preferences. And I'm not saying preferences are bad. Preferences are okay. You need those preferences. If you want to marry someone, I'd rather you marry someone that you're physically attracted to rather than someone you're not. That would make your marriage, I'm not saying that will break your marriage, but that will make your marriage harder for sure. So, but you need to put priority over preference. We talked, so you answered questions about, about should we date a non-Christian. And I think the Bible says that it's not something that you should do. It's not like it's a sin or you're gonna go to hell if you do that. But the Bible does say you're burdening yourself too much.
Right.
The fact that when you're trying to glorify God in a relationship and this person doesn't have that purpose,
and it's burdening yourself.
Yeah. It's a very one-sided relationship, and it is very conflicting because you guys have two different purposes.
Yeah, I've sort of asked this to my mom recently, like yesterday, about how dating a non-Christian girl, and she does sort of find it kind of like reasonable. But you know, dating a guy or girl who has a Christian background does have a sort of foundation that you can build off of. Like, whereas like you can date a girl that's like not Christian, she doesn't have the same beliefs. She may not have the same beliefs and sort of ethics you have as a Christian, because she doesn't know what God's love is and things like that. Whereas if you do date someone who does know God and does know the relationship we should have with him, then it will be some sort of foundation and basis you can use to like gain a better connection out of. So yeah,
Yeah.
it is. Yeah, it's not like bad for you to date someone non-Christian, but there's definitely benefits for you to date someone who knows God
Yeah.
and who has a better understanding of Him.
Yeah,
Right.
and there's also the fact that Christians that go to church are not people that go to church are not necessarily Christian, and also
Right.
people that
Right.
call themselves Christian aren't necessarily Christian.
Right.
You have to understand that, and it's the same thing. It's just like, okay, you have to understand what the purpose of dating and relationships are, and if this person, whether they claim to be a Christian or not, don't have this purpose in mind and don't understand this purpose, then it's going to be much harder and much burdensome for you when you're trying to purpose a relationship to glorify God and to portray the love of Christ, and this other person wants to try to gain happiness or have their own happiness type of thing. It's not going to work as well as it should be. It's not going to work. Basically, it's just not going to work. It's going to be very hard.
Right.
I'm not saying that it's... I mean, with that, people do date non-Christians, and they... these non-Christians that they date or they get married to become Christians sometimes.
Sometimes.
Yeah. But
Yeah.
that's like a success story that's kind of rare for sure. It's not like that happens all the time often. It's not like it always happens. So it's just not the best idea is what I would say about that. So yeah, and with that also, we also talked a little bit about dating for experience, and I am against this. Like, with every fiber of my being, I am against this dating for experience. You gain experience when you date, yes, but if your purpose for dating is for experience, then that just becomes something that shouldn't be. You're just saying, oh, how far can I go with this? What can I do to make myself happier? Or, oh, what do I want to be more happier in this relationship kind of thing? It's just not a good purpose at all. It becomes much more scavenger-like, where you're trying to scavenge this person for your own happiness, and that other person is trying to scavenge you for their own happiness. And, well, it becomes unfulfilling on both sides, and then they either break up or they have just a horrible relationship continuing on. So yeah, dating for experience, for the sake of experience, this is, I think, because the purpose is wrong, the entire application of it would be like just disastrous, chaotic, for sure. Bliss, if you have a question, you can put it up and we will read it. Oh wait, I do see it. So do you think that kissing before marriage is bad? No. But also, yes. So kissing itself isn't bad, I don't think, but it's all about boundaries. People do kiss when they date before marriage, but the fact is, it becomes harder. I talked about how people oh yeah. So I told you that it was bad. Yes, it is bad, but it's also not bad. The fact is, kissing itself isn't bad, but when you kiss, I feel like the purpose isn't, oh, hey, let's glorify God by kissing each other when we're dating. It's, hey, let's kiss in order to satisfy some sexual desire that we have. And it's also, when you kiss, it becomes much more dangerous. It can lead into much more than just kissing. I've heard of so many stories where people are like, "Oh, we were it would started with just kissing, and then things happen." You know, kissing is dangerous in a sense that it can lead to more things. It is more than often it does lead to more things for most people. So kissing isn't bad, but it is very dangerous. So I would say it is bad because it's not worth the kind of thing. How would you glorify God by kissing? The same way you would glorify God with sex. Kissing, hugging, hand holding, sex, that's all this intimacy that God has provided for for a man and a woman within the realm of marriage, within the institute of marriage. So with that, in a marriage, you can, through kissing, through sex and stuff like that, you can build upon your relationship, not only socially and emotionally and intellectually, but physically as well, through those things, through sex, through kissing, and all of that. So these are all within the realm of marriage, and when done within that realm of marriage, it is glorifying to God. I will also say you can not glorify God with sex in marriage. For sure. You can. It is when sex is used in a marriage to where both the wife and the husband use it correctly in order to build unity, in order to build their physical relationship. This is when it glorifies God, because God designed marriage and the two people within marriage to become one, physically, socially, emotionally, intellectually. And so when doing these things, you glorify God in it. And now when you do it outside of these things, outside of marriage, or even within marriage, when you do it to where it does not build unity, but it actually divides a husband and wife, this is when it is not used to glorify God. So hand holding, it's also, I told you, you see, we talked about the levels of intimacy in a relationship, in a dating relationship. In terms of intimacy in a dating relationship, you need to have very clear boundaries. This is what you need to establish. Because God, I told you, God wants you a correct amount of separation between people in relationships that are not marriage, between a man and a woman. And when you decide to try to to satisfy your kind of sexual desire, and I'm not saying just sexual desire, like, okay, let's say physical desire, so like hand holding, like hugging, like touching, what have you, these things you can within a dating relationship, I think you can do to a certain extent, but because it makes you a little bit closer, I guess. But the dangerous is so much more than the benefits. Like I said before, the dangers are so much more than the benefits. With that, hand holding, I think it's fine. It's much less prone to lead to anything more dangerous. But kissing, it's definitely a lot more dangerous. There's a very big kind of disparity between hand holding and kissing, I feel like. Though I can say also that hand holding may also lead to things as well. Who knows? But yeah, it's about your own kind of struggle, I guess. Some people struggle with their sexual desire more than others. If someone struggles with it more, you need to be able to deal with that, or to set appropriate boundaries so that you can protect yourself and your significant other from this. Bliss also asked, what happens if you just not date anyone? I mean, you can just not date anyone. I mean, I dated my wife for, let's say, 3 months before I got married, but even then, it was not 3 months actually. It was more like a month, because after a month of dating, she had to go to Korea. I stayed in America, and then so we didn't really see each other after that 1 month of dating. And then I went to Korea and we got married. So it wasn't a long dating relationship at all. So I didn't have that long dating relationship. So you can not date anyone, but I would also say that I'm not saying don't date people. I'm not saying that. I'm saying if you're dating people, date with the understanding that you need to purpose this to glorify God. And also, one of your reasons for dating should be marriage. If it's anything other than marriage, then it's definitely a wrong purpose.
Right.
It's just basically dating for fun, or dating so that you can, get some of that sexual desire out of you, satisfy some of that sexual desire, or satisfy some of that social desire, I'm lonely, I want someone, or that boredom, I'm bored, I want to have fun with someone type of thing. That's not what dating should be. Paul, were you going to say something?
I'm really sorry, but I really need to go take the restroom. So
Okay.
Can I just 30 seconds?
Yeah.
30 seconds. I'll be back. I'm sorry.
Wash your hands. So yeah, Bliss, it's up to you. You cannot date anyone, but I'm not saying that. I'm saying that you need to take the purpose of dating into account, so that when you do date, you date with the right purpose and not the wrong one. But yeah, I also don't encourage, marrying somebody without dating them or without knowing them for sure, because I don't think that's very helpful. You won't even know this person very well until after you get married. I'm not saying you can't get married without knowing someone. You can. It just makes it a little bit harder, for sure. But yeah, since Paul is gone, anybody else have questions and or comments? So I feel like a lot of youth have either dated, are dating, or want to date. Oh, what if you don't date someone, but you do all the things with them that you would do with someone that you are dating? That's just semantics. You are dating, you're just not putting a label on it. So if you are texting this person daily, meeting up with them, having that sort of relational intimacy and romantic kind of intimacy with someone, then you are dating them. You're just not accepting it. That's what I feel like. Nobody has to say they're dating. We can just look at their action and understand that they have romantic intimacy. They have physical intimacy. You see, dating is not dating just because they say it's dating. Dating is dating because they are connected by this romantic intimacy and commitment. That's what it is. And so they don't have to say they're dating for us to know that they are dating. They have this connection. How do you feel about church relationships? I'm fine with church relationships. For you youth, as I've told you, already stated, none of you are ready for a relationship. I can tell you for a certain fact that none of you are ready for a relationship, a dating relationship right now.
More on someone.
Yeah. Now, with that, you can completely disregard me and go into a relationship. I'm fine with that as well. You figure that out. I'm sure you will either do good. You will also make mistakes as well. You will learn from that. God will use that. So I'm not in control of your life. You do what you want to do, and I will pray that God will use anything that happens in your life to help you understand God and draw you closer to Him. How do you know when you're ready for a relationship? You're never ready for a relationship, I don't think. But you can be more ready than less. You can You can't be completely ready for a relationship, but you can definitely be less ready, not ready for a relationship. You see? So, I wasn't... Siri, no. I wasn't ready for a marriage relationship when I got married. I wasn't at all ready. But I decided and I did it and I acted upon my decisions and my choices. Now, you're never fully ready, but you can definitely be not ready. And that's why I tell you guys that you're not ready. How you know that you are somewhat a semblance of ready is when you can glorify God and portray the love of Christ in areas of your life. Okay? And if you can do that, then maybe you can add this other aspect, which is called dating. Because if you can't portray God's love and glorify God in your other relationships, in your other aspects of life, then what makes you think that adding dating into your life and saying that you can also try to glorify God in that would help you at all? It just puts another aspect where you will struggle and you will have a hard time with. I would say, at least in your life, if you can be ready to a certain extent by understanding that in other aspects of your life, you are seeking and striving and are not struggling as much and trying to bring these aspects of your life to glorify God. I don't know if that made sense, but hopefully it did. So, let's see. We talked a lot about dating and relationships right now. I hope you guys understood some of what we talked about. Paul, so I don't think you've talked as much. I talked too much this time, so yeah, I need you to talk a little bit more.
Right. So I had a little closing remark I had. So just about this whole dating experience and like just relationships. I feel as if you still have questions and you're still wondering about how to know when you're ready or not, I feel like one of the best references you can go off of is your parents and how they may have like found each other and just know how they have met and things like that. So, personally, for me, my parents, I feel as whenever Pastor G talked about how he just chose, I I can see that with my parents of how my mom may have just chosen our dad and just married, and it just seemed very relatable. But despite that, I can still, despite the way that they just may have just chose, and like, despite of their like preferences may have not like been met, I can still see the love and like kind of bond they have through the relationship and through us, that they're able to glorify God still, and how they educated us in such a good way, and how they treated us how they shown God's love to us, and how they're able to like do things like that. And I know some may not have the same kind of maybe parents and some sort of like relationship, but just just I feel like the best sort of advice you can get is through your parents. And if that's not the case, then just reading off the Bible and seeing what it talks about loving yourself and loving others. But yeah, that's just a closing remark I have.
Yeah, and then parents, basically any other Christians that experience their testimony or their experience will help you. I'm not saying that that'll be exactly your case. All people are different. It's not going to be the same for you as it is for them, but it will help you understand a little bit more. Yeah. So dating and relationships, it's something that is very prevalent within our life, within your lives, probably. All your friends are probably dating, and you have a lot of drama floating around in that as well. But we as Christians, need to understand the true purpose of dating, of relationships, and why we ought to do them. as Paul talked about earlier with this previous relationship, I mean, from what I have heard about it, it doesn't seem like Paul understood kind of the purpose behind his dating. He just wanted the experience, try to figure out, stuff like that. And see, and this is how most people understand this to be. Well, because most people don't talk about how we should date, it becomes, okay, well, how do other people do it around me? What do my friends, how do they date? What do they date for? And that becomes how we build our understanding of how and what dating is. And that shouldn't be the case. We should not rely on friends, people around us, society to tell us what dating is and what the purpose of dating is. We need to look at the truth of Scripture, truth in itself. And then from that, we have to build up an understanding of what certain things are. And that's the same for dating. If we understand that God has told us that we ought to love everybody as Christ loved us, that we ought to portray the love of God despite any circumstance or situation or any or without the want of any reciprocal action, of any return. See, this is what love we ought to portray in our relationships. And in marriage and in dating, we need to strive to glorify God by doing these things, by purposing dating for marriage. So when you're thinking about dating someone, it's not, oh, I want to date this person. He looks so cool, or she looks so beautiful type of thing. It's, or he's funny, or she's cute. It's, I think I want to marry this person. And so I will date them to try to get to know them more, to clarify my, to bring evidence, or to, through my experience of dating this person, bring these evidences of whether I should or should not decide to marry this person up. And then choosing whether to or not to date. And this choosing whether to or not to date should not be based on solely on personal preference, kind of like, oh, is she attractive enough? Oh, I thought she was attractive, but then I look around, there's another person that's even more attractive. Maybe there's someone I should marry. The personal preference, though it can be included, should not be the deciding factor. It should be the priority. When you're choosing this one person to date for marriage, it should be, hey, do I want to decide to be with this person in order to glorify God together? You see? This is the purpose of a marriage, to glorify God together. And if your purpose is anything else in marriage than to glorify God together, then it's not something that you should be doing. And if when you're dating, you're doing it without this understanding of you're going to see if you can marry this person in order to glorify God together, then that's not something you should be doing either. So, to kind of sum it up, all of this, dating, I know you guys do it. I know you guys think about it and want to do it. But you have to understand. We have to understand what dating is and what our purpose should be. This is where dating and Christianity intersect. When you think about dating and try to date someone, I guess, I don't want you guys to. You guys are definitely not ready. But if you do,
just keep going. No.
If you do, you need to keep this purpose in mind. Are you truly trying to glorify God in your relationship, or is this for some other purpose? You have to examine that, truly. Because if you're trying to, gain happiness, not be as lonely in your life, to be rescued out of your boredom, to have a little bit more fun, or to satisfy your sexual cravings, you're not going to glorify God in your relationship. You're definitely going to abuse it, and you will have to answer to God for that later on as well. when you meet God and he says, okay, did you love this person, my daughter, as I loved you? Or did you, abuse your relationship? And did you scavenge to try to sate your sexual cravings? Did you do it so that you would, to try to scrape out your own happiness? How did you do this? What did you do? We'll all have to answer for our actions, and dating is just one. So keep dating in mind, and please date with purpose and intent. And also, don't date right now. Okay, so yeah, that's kind of the end. Today was, dating is a big thing. There's a lot of things to talk about, so I feel like today it wasn't as structured as I wanted it to, because it was such a big subject. But hopefully you guys got something out of it. It was at least a little bit understandable. And I hope that you guys really keep this in mind and try to think things through based on what you've learned today. So I thank you, Paul, today for coming, for deciding on this subject and talking to us about that. I want to thank you for that. I'm sorry that I talked a lot.
No, it's fine. If I were to talk anymore, I don't think I would have done any better.
I keep saying that I don't want to talk as much, but it always ends up happening. I really should try to control myself. I have problems with self-control as well, as you've seen. So with that, I will work on this more on our future sessions as well. Thank you, Paul, for everything you've done, for all the viewers for coming in and joining us today. And I will see you guys next week for our next session. Okay, thank you guys so much. Bye-bye.
Bye.